All right, guys, we are back with another great episode of Basscast Radio. Guys, it's just me tonight. Hope you guys are all doing well out there. Man, we appreciate everyone tuning in. And before we get started, introduce tonight's guest, we want to say thank you to everyone that came out and fished with us this past weekend with Hill City Bassmasters. It's the small club tournament that we have. I guess, it averages like 10 to 15 boats. It's only a $50 entry fee, but they teamed up with Rippin' Lips, and we had an awesome event on James River, Monacan Park. We had 18 anglers day 1, 13 day 2. Hopefully by now you've seen all the results. But we raised over $1,000 for Mr. Corey West and for his family. So thank you all to everyone who come out. Thank you everyone who donated prizes. Like I said, guys, it was an awesome event, and it was because of you guys. And thank you all. Thank you to all the tournament directors. Thank you to the Fitzgeralds. And yes, thank you. All right. So we opened the show a little different tonight because we do have a sponsor and we do have Rumble. If you guys have not checked out Rumble yet, there it is. That is the home of Basscast Radio, and you guys are checking it out because I went and looked at some numbers a little while ago. You guys are hitting the shows, taking a look. We hope you enjoy them. There's a lot of great shows out there already, and all you got to do is go to rumble.com and watch past episodes of Basscast Radio as well as Backstage Fishing. Both of them are on there. But if you want to go listen to the podcast, we're on all the major podcast networks, or you can just go to outdoorobsessionsradio.com and you guys can listen there. Also, the basscast.com tournament series kicks off in just a few more weeks. Don't forget the Eric Catlett event is next weekend. So looking forward to seeing you guys all there. We're going to have lots of giveaways. We're doing 50-50 on the payout. What else can I say? I don't know. It's a whole lot going on. A lot of things are still being organized right here at the last minute because we really didn't think the turnout would be what it is, but you guys have all stepped up and we appreciate everything. And we're looking forward to seeing all of you guys September the 11th at Crazy Horse Marina. All right, guys, tonight we got an angling friend of the basscast.com, Mr. Ken May. He won the last Apex Cup, Wild Wild West. You guys, for you guys who live out west, this is an awesome tournament trail, an awesome thing they have going on. And it's a pretty cool concept. If you guys have listened to past podcasts, because we've interviewed a couple other Apex Cup winners, and we're going to continue that this year. And again, we're going to be talking to Mr. Ken May, and he's going to introduce you guys to him if you guys don't know who he is. And we're going to talk about the event itself. But we want to thank Riverwise Fishing for coming on and being a sponsor of Basscast Radio. Riverwise Fishing, your source for quality fishing gear. They offer your favorite baits in your go-to colors, such as sexy shad and green pumpkin, but have added some unique and effective patterns such as spring fling, pumpkin spice, and bullfrog. Speaking of frogs, their signature 3-inch micro frog has been the most productive and versatile bait in their lineup, guys. Definitely a fan favorite. When it comes to sun protection and being comfortable on the water, check out their line of apparel as well. For anything from performance shirts to neck gaiters to beat the heat, check them out at riverwisefishing.com. And I hope to get, now they're out in California, by the way, guys, but I hope to get them on one of our Sunday morning conversations. So that way you guys can meet the mastermind behind the company. There it is, guys. We're going to be giving these away probably. Let's shoot for, we got a lot going on and it's almost the weekend. So let's shoot for next week. We're going to be giving a bunch of their products away to one lucky person. And we're going to be doing it on Instagram as always. So If you're not following the basscast.com on Instagram, please make sure you head over and do so today. So that way you can enter our contest. Guys, always Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. We're on all of that, by the way. Thank you to everyone who is following us. And thank you to all of our future followers. And don't forget to check out thebasscast.com. All right, guys. We'll be right back with Mr. Ken May. All right, guys. We are back with Mr. Ken Ma. What's up, brother?
What's up, Brian? How are you? Long time. It's been a while.
Yes, it has been a while. We're catching up a little bit for the show, man. It's been 2017, 2018, somewhere in there.
About right. About right. Yeah.
It's funny, Facebook does those memory things. And it's like you're looking back like, oh my gosh, for real?
Yeah.
It's like items that were, that was a big year in the world of tackle. I mean, a lot of innovative stuff came out that year. For us, it was for the kayakers. I think that was the first year the Bonafide kayak came out, and
okay,
a lot of great products came out that year. So, and Trapper Tackle, your affiliation with that for a while, and they won some awards that year. But man, we're not here to talk about the past, man. We're here to talk about the future. And this Apex Cup. Wow West, guys, by the way. And like I said at the beginning of the show, if you guys are not following them, it's a great organization. They got a lot of stuff going on. And for the kayakers out there like myself, they got a kayak series as well.
They do.
I just saw that schedule pop up the other day. So I was like, that is awesome, man. Because it's huge.
It really is. Yeah, it really is. I mean, Wild West Bass Trail, started off with pro-ams, teams. They were primarily at the time when it first launched. It was actually Gary Dobbins is probably a name that people know. Gary Dobbins and Matt Morgan. Yeah, they were the two that lifted Wild West Bass Trail back 6 years ago. And then, Gary obviously moved to Texas, and Matt's from Indiana, and Wild West was sold to the current owner, Jeremy D. Hart.
Okay.
And then since he's taken over, I mean, the product line has literally doubled since he has taken over.
Yeah, Gary Dobbins is a fan of the basscast.com as well. It's always great to see him when we go to the Bassmaster Classic, like we will be in South Carolina next year. Rooms booked, by the way. We will be there. Very, very excited about that. But before we get started, man, Ken, tell everybody else who you really are, man, for those who don't know.
Okay, so I'm from that. When everybody says you're from California, people back there are like, oh man, Cali. Born and raised in Cali. I've been fishing out here, pretty much all my life. I think I've been back east a few times. I've been in Table Rock. I've been back to Florida here and there, fishing then FLW and then now MLF stuff.
Right.
But primarily, just due to my family life and things like that, I have, for the most part, just fished in and around the Western U.S. From Oregon, Washington, California, of course, and then into Nevada and Arizona. Okay. So that's primarily where the bulk of our larger organization and bigger tournaments hold events in those states.
Ken, at what age, man, did you get this fishing bug, brother?
Oh gosh, I think it's a simple story like everybody else's story. My dad. My dad took me fishing. I'm the youngest of three, and my dad took me fishing. All of us fishing. I have fond memories of fishing with my dad on the California Delta, on the bank and in a boat. As young as 5-6 years old. And then back then it was all, cut bait, live bait, floating minnows and, stuff like that, catching stripers on, butterfly shad and all that stuff. I'm there right now with my dad. He's still around too.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then I did that for as long as I can remember, like 5 years old. I have memories of doing that from 5 to about 18. And then about 18 or 19 years old, I had a friend that he got a job at Walmart in the sporting goods section, and he asked me if I bass fished, and I said, yeah, I bass fish all the time. I float minnows underneath bobbers all the time. And I remember he bought a couple of Strike King spinner baits for, those Colorado Strike King spinner baits.
Oh, yes.
And they were $1.87. If I'm going to age myself a little bit, but they were like $1.87. And we threw them on some spinning rods with, 10-pound tests because we didn't know any better, and went out to the Delta and floated my dad's boat down the current, and we started catching fish. And, and then I fished a little rookie tournament, maybe 7-8 months later.
Yeah.
And after that tournament, that was put on by West Coast Bass. And after that tournament, I was hooked. I mean, just like head over heels hooked. I was 19. I bought my first bass boat, which was a 4-year-old champion.
Oh, and heavy champion.
Yeah. I bought that. It was 4 years. It was 4 years old already at the time, and I bought that. And I would say that since about 91, I've had a bass boat in my life. I haven't gone without one.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that's where it started. I think parents and people that take you out and you just have fun fishing, and then the rest of it, it just came, throwing artificials and stuff like that.
Yeah. All right. So let's move into this Apex Cup win on the Thermalito Afterbay. I mean, it's like Thermalito Afterbay. Okay. That's a heck of a name for a lake. Tell us about that lake, man.
Yeah. So, what Apex does or is doing now, just to give the listeners a little bit or the viewers a little bit of a background.
Yeah.
So Apex, so for the first time in our region, Apex is making anglers have to qualify to enter a league. Okay. So you can't pay your money and just call yourself, quote, a pro anymore.
Right.
Okay. So Wild West Bass Trail holds pro-ams currently in California and Oregon, Washington. And basically they just go off the AOI list. And if you're top 10 in AOI list, they invite you, similar to how the Elite Series does their invitations, to the Elite Series from the Opens. So it models that. And then after that, that's kind of where the comparisons stop. For Apex, there's a 30-day off limits. There's no info. They do polygraphs. There's zero practice. So there's a 30-day off limits. And, many of our anglers are, from like Arizona. There's a good following currently from California, Oregon, and Washington. And basically you go on a 30-day off limits. You show up on the first day. And many of our group, to show how talented they are, never been to the lake, never practiced the lake. They show up on the first day of the tournament, which is a Thursday. We put our boats in the water. They give us 30 minutes to basically drive the lake.
Okay.
You can't fish. So you drive the lake, you come back, you can retie some rods, and then the bell rings and you go fishing.
Okay.
And it starts counting right now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that's the format. We have a thing called Tourney X, which I think you're probably very familiar with.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Dwayne Wally and Tim Arthur from Tourney X, they basically revamped how Tourney X works for kayak for Apex.
Mm-hmm.
So it allows fans to log in and follow along, your favorite angler, or you just want to follow and see how the fishing is, but it allows them to follow along and see how many fish we're catching and who's catching fish. So it's almost like a live, not almost, it's a live update that's going on.
It's like Bass Tracker.
Exactly. It's like Bass Tracks. Yep. So that's really how the format works. And it's a 3-day event. It's pro only. There's no co-anglers, and you fish for 2 days, and there's 2 ways to make the top 10.
Mm-hmm.
So you make it by either being top 5 in total number of scoreable bass caught, or you're top 5 in total weight caught after 2 days. And then at the end of 2 days, there's a top 10 that goes to Championship Sunday. The weight's 0.
Right.
Yep. The weight's 0. So everybody's leading it going in the last day. And it's basically heaviest 5-fish limit wins on Championship Sunday.
Yeah, guys, he had 1944 on his final day. Is what What took it for you to win?
Yeah. And so, to your original question, Brian, was, tell us a little bit about the fishery. So that's the other thing Apex is doing is they're going to these, kind of like what you talked about, like the MPFL, they go to these kind of smaller non-mainstream lakes.
Right.
Apex doing the same thing. We've been to a lake called Almanor. I had never been there before. We went to Lake Comanche, which was, which is a smaller lake. Like if you put 100 boats on Comanche, you're basically going to be bumper to bumper.
Yeah, you're going to be like fishing on top of each other.
Yeah, rub rail to rub rail. It's like fishing, some of the lakes back there when they're on the ledges. And then we went to the Thermalito Afterbay, which we had. If you put 60 or 70 boats on that lake, it's you're not going to be able to drive around. Mm-hmm. And really, what it is, to answer your question, finally, is it's an afterbay. So Lake Oroville, which is deep, clear, and rocky, right? There's no grass, there's some trees in it, but it's basically a highland reservoir.
Okay.
And a bunch of spotted bass in it. So that lake dumps water from the bottom of the dam into the afterbay. And what the afterbay is there for is to warm the water to a certain temperature to be used for irrigation. Right? Because obviously if you put 50-degree water on your crops, it's probably going to kill your crops. So that's what the afterbay is. Yeah. And it's a really neat reservoir. It really is. It's for the people that have been there. I live an hour and 50 minutes to Clear Lake from my door. And then I live 50 minutes to the Cal Delta. So, I live between, two of the arguably best bass fisheries in the entire world. Mm-hmm. And very fortunate. I mean, I'm blessed to, I didn't say I picked to live here, but this is where I live.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And the Afterbay sets up almost identical to those two fisheries. There's grass in it. There's tules. The water's slightly off colored. There was some places along the riprap where the water you could see down maybe 8 or 10 feet. And then in the area that I was fishing, it was like 3-foot visibility.
Well, let's talk about you brought up the 30 minutes. You get to cruise the lake. And this could be this lake or any other lake. What's Ken looking for in his 30 minutes? So,
beforehand, I do a lot of research on Google Earth. Mm-hmm. And open source, because we're allowed to do Google Earth and open source research. So prior to doing my drive around, I did a lot of Google Earth research. I looked on YouTube, and then you look for fishing reports and everything. They didn't hold any big tournaments there.
Oh wow!
They had club tournaments there, and then they hold these Wednesday nighter deals there. Mm-hmm. And on these Wednesday night deals, I think it's either a 2 or 3 fish limit. And but there's some really good anglers that jump into those Wednesday night events, from locally around there.
Right.
So I got a feel for what kind of weight it would take. I actually thought, the club tournaments and those Wednesday nighters, I thought 14 pounds was going to be a really big bag.
Oh, wow.
13, 14, because most of those club tournaments, it was taking anywhere from 12 to 13 to win. And then, so once I do that Google Earth research, I'm looking, what I always look for when I'm going somewhere is what type of cover is there? What is the watercolor? I want to know generally what season the fish are going to be in. Mm-hmm. And then, currently what type of watercolor there is, right? Because I fish Clear Lake in the Delta, so I'm going to gravitate, me personally, I'm going to gravitate to the dirty. Mm-hmm. Right. It's the same thing I do at Lake Mead when we go there, right? Lake Mead, there's places where you can throw a dime over the side of your boat and you can see it in 30.
Oh, wow.
Right. But then there's places in Lake Mead where I can throw a black and blue jig on the bank and you can't see it. Right. So it's a really diverse fishery. And the Afterbay was very similar. I knew there was grass from the research I did. I knew there were tules. And I kind of generally knew the watercolor. So for me, I prior to putting my boat on the water, I had looked on Google Earth and I knew, well, at least from what I saw, I knew where the dirtiest water was created based on wind and shallowness.
Right.
So I automatically, I said, okay, well, I'm going to start in that region of the lake regardless. Right. Because what I would encourage people to do that are listening is anywhere you go, any body of water you go to, whether you know it or you don't know it, obviously, if you don't know it, you got to find the area where you are most comfortable doing what you want to do. Right. That is so important. Like I get being diverse and being this and being that. But, if you have zero practice, like we do in Apex, or if you have 2 or 3 days practice, like some of the circuits allow you to practice, I always start where I'm most comfortable fishing the style that I want to fish first.
Right.
Right. Because if that doesn't work and I have to go get uncomfortable, then I'm going to go get uncomfortable fishing other techniques that I, like I said, that I'm not as comfortable doing. And then I'm going to go to parts of the lake where I'm not as comfortable because I know what I want to do is not working. Right. So that's what I would encourage, anybody when you're going to a new body of water, do a little bit of research, understand who you are and what you like to do.
Right.
And then you have to determine, will the lake allow you to do that? Right. I mean, like I like to flip, pitch, and punch, 80-pound braid and throw frogs. And, I like to throw, traps and vibrating jigs and crankbaits and topwater. Right. That's how I like to fish. But if I go to a lake that is crystal clear, 15, 20 foot of visibility, and it's the middle of summer and, you can see every rock on the bank for, 45 yards, chances of me throwing 80-pound braid up there and catching any fish is going to be slim to none.
Yeah.
Come
on up here to Smith Mountain Lake.
Right. And I think that's what's important is, you want to get somewhere that you can fish your strengths. I think that's a really big deal is you can fish your strengths and then, hopefully find ways to catch fish how you want to. And then if you don't, then if the practice days allow you, then you expand based on what you either found or didn't find on the first day of practice.
How did you feel after the first 30 minutes? From what you saw scanning the banks and, running to the spot that you said, I'm going there first.
So I actually stayed around where I had decided not to fish, right? I did my drive around in places where I had already said that I may not fish because then I wanted to see more of the lake.
Okay.
Because I drove to the very southern end of the lake. That's where the dirtiest water, based on my research was going to be. So after the 30-minute drive around, based on what I saw and what was I was excited about was there were tule clumps, out by themselves. There was like this red leaf grass that were making that formed some mats. And then the watercolor where I was at was like maybe 3 to 5 foot visibility, and there were largemouth bass. There's largemouth bass in that lake. So anytime where you have grass, tules, and dark water, largemouth are going to get shallow.
You're lucky, man. They kill all the grass out here on the East Coast. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
we say grass and it's like, did you go to the river?
They do a lot of that also, they drop pellets and they spray a lot on the Cal Delta. Yeah. And then they do it at Clear Lake as well. They drop pellets and things like that. Like I said, a lot of the water that comes out of Oroville, it's either going to be irrigation or drinking water.
Yeah.
So I think they're very cautious on what type of chemicals they're pouring directly or using directly into that waterway.
All right. So you finished the first 2 days at 22.56 pounds.
Right.
Which kicked you into the final day. How did the first two break it down to us? You ain't got to tell us in depth, but break us down, the first 2 days for you, man.
Okay. So, after my 30-minute drive around, I basically drove, down to the south end of the lake and, based on Google Earth, I got into an area where I saw a lot of like tule.
So what's tule real quick? If anybody don't know what that is, and I don't know what it is. So
tules are, I guess you guys maybe call them pencil reeds.
Okay. All right. Yes.
Yeah. It's a real skinny aquatic plant. Some of it, it can grow, 10, 11 foot
they
tall.
grow real high.
Yeah, and then there's little blooms on the ends of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go back to it then.
Okay, and the lake had a lot of that.
Okay.
And when I got close to some of those tule clumps, I would pitch a bait in there, and there was sometimes 6-7 feet of water in the tule clumps.
Oh wow.
Right. So and I was pretty excited, so for me, what I always want to do on an unfamiliar body of water is I want to cover water.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I want to get somewhere where I'm comfortable, and I want to put the trolling motor, like somewhere between 40 and 60. And I want to cast a bait because I want to gather as much information as possible. Right. And the information that I'm looking for is water temp, water clarity, either emergent or pre-emergent vegetation, if that exists. Right. Mm-hmm. And if there's wood, our brains are a computer when we're fishing.
Yeah.
And you want to put as much data as you can, and then rely on your experience and your talent to process that data and then go to something that you're hoping that works. So I got into an area where there was a lot of pre-emergent grass, and I could feel it because, I started off each day throwing a 1/2 ounce rattle trap. This is a ghost minnow color. I pretty much knew from doing my research. Is that green screen messing with it?
Nope. I see it now.
Okay. So this is a ghost minnow color, but chrome and blue, red, that kind of stuff. It's a bait that I can cast. I can work quickly. It's very erratic. You can rip it out of the grass, and it does a lot of things. Covers a lot of water.
Yes.
So I put this on, and then I tied 2 vibrating jigs on, and I always go with like a green pumpkin kind of color.
Yeah.
And I've actually started using these big bite swim-ons. I don't know if you can see that or not.
Yeah, I
see these
it.
Big bite.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, these big bite swim-ons, and I really like it because it's got a kind of a minnow shape here, but it can also double as little crawdad pinchers.
Okay.
So between these 3 baits, I threw a shad one, which has a small little 3.3, also a big bite tour swimmer, and then the swim on, which is a little bit bigger profile, and then the rattle trap. Those are the 3 baits that I use to cover water.
Okay.
And then, so on the first morning, you don't know anything, right?
Yeah.
You don't have any history. You didn't practice. So I'm looking at Tourney X, and I want to see if people are catching fish, right? Because when you look at Tourney X, if there's 8 or 10 guys that, catch 5, 6, 7 fish within the first 30 minutes, and you have 0, you need to do something.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You need to move, you need to change up, you need to do something. So you can use like Bass Tracks and Score Tracker for MLF, and then with Tourney X with Apex, you use that to your advantage, especially when you're on a body of water that you don't know. Okay. But clearly after the first day, the lake was going to fish tough.
Right.
So after the first day, I threw reaction. I actually, probably one of the things that I love to do the most is flip, pitch, and punch. Mm-hmm. So I actually, took a bait. That's a big bite college crawl. G-Money punch skirt, and then this is an ounce weight.
Okay.
I use a P-line punch stop, and I use 80-pound FX braid.
You're trying to get down in them reeds,
right? And that's exactly what I did, Brian. You're exactly right. That's what I did. I went to those tules and I was flipping, and I got two of the right bites on day 1, and I set up on them. But because there's so many lay down tules and those pencil reeds, they lay down. That braid just digs into them, and they're hard to dig out. Mm-hmm. So I lost 2 of those on day 1, and then I actually made a conscious effort. And this is what I told the reporter David Brown when he was writing the article about 10:30 on day 1. And I think these are the things that viewers and listeners, when you're going through a tournament day, there's so many little decisions that you don't realize that you make that affect the outcome of your tournament, good and bad. And so after losing those 2 fish, I felt and they were both in the 4-pound class.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, no, they were,
Yeah, because when you predicted 14 pounds a day and it ended up being 22 for both, 24 for both days, 22 for both days. I mean, those are some big fish.
They were. And when you look back, catching a 4-pounder was special.
Yes.
So I lost those two. And then, so this is my thing that I was going through my head. I was like, okay, look, I believe that the winning fish were in these toolies, but because the bite was so hard to generate bites, and I had caught 2 fish. I had caught one on a trap, and I had caught one on a vibrating jig, and one of them was pushing 4 pounds that I had caught on the vibrating jig, right? So I had like a 4-pounder, and I had like a 2.5. So I had 2 fish. It's like 10:30, 11 o'clock. I just lose 2 in a 4-pound class. So I say to myself, I'm like, look, if I keep doing this, I said, how many bites do you think you can get, Ken, doing this for the rest of the day? And I said to myself, I actually answered myself, I go, I think I could get 4 more bites. Okay. And then I said, well, how many am I going to land? Because I've already hooked 2 and lost 2. Okay. So I said, well, if I get 4 more bites, I think I'm going to land 2, maybe 1 more. Right. Because they were just so buried in that stuff and so deep. Mm-hmm. So I actually made a conscious effort. I'm like, okay, I'm going to stop flipping the toolies, even though I believe the winning fish are in there.
Yeah.
And then around the toolies, there was all this grass that was growing, that was starting to grow. And it was topped out. So it was good grass to flip and punch. And there was a mix of grass that was in that lake, and again, I didn't really have the intentions of flipping that grass, but I actually at about 10:30 on day 1, I made a conscious effort and said, okay, look, let me go out here and try and fish some of this grass. Because if I get bit and I hook it, I think my probability of landing it is going to go up from 20 to 30%. It's going to go up to maybe 80%.
Yeah.
Okay. So I made that conscious decision, and I did that. And then the rest of the day, I got 4 more bites in the grass. One was a 6. The other was a 4.5.
Oh, wow.
So I ended up only weighing 4 fish the first day, and I had 4 fish for 1561 is what I was. So I was second in weight. Greg Gutierrez was leading the weight side after day 1. He weighed like 1803, which when we went to weigh in, the locals there, they were like bug-eyed over his 18-pound bag.
Oh, wow.
Right. I mean, they have them in there, and in the early spring, I mean, the locals have caught, 20-pound, even 23, 24-pound bags. So the place has got them. But in the middle of the summer in August, just like anywhere else, it's a summer bite. It gets tough.
Lockjaw.
Yeah. Yep. So Greg had 1803, and I was second with 1561. And then Mark Lassane, I think, was leading the scoreable bass side with 13.
Okay.
So day 2, I pretty much started doing the same thing.
All right.
Camera boat pulls up on me, and I lose one about 4. I was doing the math, and I figured I needed about 18 pounds total to make the top 10 cut. Right. So
did you go back to the toolies on day 2?
I did not.
You stuck to the grass?
I went to the grass the rest of the tournament. Yep. And I made that conscious effort because I was afraid that if I got 5 bites, I would only land 2 of them in the toolies. So I started off again, same thing, throwing a trap, throwing a vibrating jig. I hook one about 3.5. Apex doesn't allow nets.
Right.
And I get it close to the boat, camera's there. I pin it up against the boat, drop my rod, and I go to reach down to lip it, and the fish just shoots right clean out of my hand. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Holy cow.
I was dropping F-bombs.
Yes.
Yeah. Because like I said, I did the math accurately. I had 1561, and I figured if I got to 1861, I would make it into the top 10 cut easily.
Right.
And my math was correct. So that fish was all of 3.5 pounds because I had my hands on it. So, and you don't realize, you lose a fish like that early, and it could really set the tone for your day to go poorly. Because you put that fish in the boat, you fish a little more freely, and then you're like, okay, yeah, I mean, I only need maybe one more 2-pounder, and I'm for sure in the cut. So I end up catching like a 2-pounder on a vibrating jig. And then I wander into my primary area where I got those flip bites on day one. And I was sharing the area with Joe Uribe.
Okay.
So I got into my main deal, and, it was about 11 o'clock, and my flip bite was late every day.
Okay.
So, and it was a little sketchy because it would start around 10:30, but then we had to weigh in at 1 or 1:30.
Right.
So I didn't have very much time to generate those bites and then to put them in the boat.
So even at 10:30, you still didn't have, I mean, the sky's pretty bluebird, or was it, you still not full?
Yeah.
You think about that, it'd be like full, I'm going to say daylight, but the hottest part of the day and all the other good stuff. So.
Yeah. And then, so I got into my primary deal, and I had started, like I said, I started throwing this bait, which is a big bite college crawl. This is the full size one.
Okay.
And G Money punch skirt 1 ounce weight was plenty to get into that grass. And so then I punch a 4.5 pounder. So I already had a 2-pounder. I'm like, okay, well, that's 6.5 pounds. I go, I'm in, because I already have 21 pounds.
Right.
So I actually start, and I always say this, it was so hard to get bites. I don't want to say I laid off of them, but I went pre-fishing.
Okay.
To try to look for other stuff, because I was sure that I was going to be in the top 10 cuts, and your weight's 0. Yeah. So there's no reason to lean on my fish, for show.
Right.
So I took off, and I ended up catching another like 1.25 pounds somewhere else. I ended up weighing like 7 pounds on the second day to add to my 1561. Okay. So weight 0, championship Sunday comes.
Here comes the 19-pound bag.
Yeah. So I knew after day one. So Nick Salvucci and I roomed together, and I came back to the house, and I said, dude, he goes, hey, what'd you have? I saw you had a good bag. And I told him I had 1561 for 4. And he goes, well, did you have number 5 on? I go, yeah, I had it on like 3 times. Right. And he's like, well, yeah, how big are they? I'm like, well, I lost 2 in the 4-pound class. And he looks at me, he goes, so you're telling me you should have weighed like 19 pounds? I'm like, well, yeah, if I boat one of those, then yeah, I would have at least 18.5, 19 pounds. And he says to me, he goes, man, you're around the right ones.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I agreed with him, and we're very open with each other. So I told him exactly what I was doing, what kind of grass to look for, the whole bit. And at the end of day one, I had told him and my wife, because you don't tell these things to, you don't get up on stage and be like, I'm around the winners, I'm going to win this thing. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's not my style, but I told Nick and I told my wife, I go, hey, look, if I make the top 10 cut, I'm around the ones to win this tournament. That's awesome. After day one. Right.
Yeah.
A lot has to go right, Ryan, as you know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, a lot has to go right, but if things went right, I said I was around the right ones. Okay. So going into the last day, there was another critical thing here that I did to really generate bites. So again, like Joe Uribe and I were sharing in the same water, and and I don't know if you know Joe, but he's won like almost everything out here.
Holy cow!
He's won like 3 FLW/MLF events.
Oh wow!
He's won Angler of the Year and multiple circuits.
I've probably seen him in a press release.
Yeah, he's a Bridgeford food pro. I mean, he's just and Joe and I get along really well. We're friends for sure off the water and on the water. But I was sharing that same area with him, and we got into that. So the first morning, the championship Sunday.
Yes.
I had said, you know what? I'm going to get into my area and I ain't going to leave. I'm going to wait for him. Okay. And then that morning I did 2 things. I I actually had not been bit on a frog the entire week. So I tied on a black river to sea ish fat Mad Daddy frog.
Oh yeah.
Yep. I love the frog. I'm not sponsored by him or anything, but I think it's a tremendous frog. So I tied a black one on because, early morning, I was going to throw it around the tulies and some of that grass where I knew now after 3 days or entering my third day, I knew they lived, so I tied that on that morning, and I'm like third cast into it. I catch one almost 5.
Holy cow.
Yeah. And, so I'm like, I'm way ahead of where I would be if I was throwing a trap or a vibrating jig. Right. So I catch a 5. And then about 30, 40 minutes later, I never get another bite on the frog. 30, 40 minutes later, I'm kind of fishing up around the tulies because it's still low light. I'm like, man, that spot looks really good for a buzzbait, but I didn't have one out on the deck. So I dig one out of my rod locker. I cut off a single buzz. I tie on a D&M double buzz, and I probably made 10 casts with it. I catch a 2 1/4. Okay. So here I am, it's 45 minutes, hour into the day. I got a 5 and I got a 2 1/4. And I'm like, if I catch 3 more of the ones that I'm around, which would total 12 pounds, right? I'm going to have 19 pounds.
Yeah.
And then, so Joe and I were fishing the same area. I know he was throwing a 1 ounce bait, and this is kind of my deal. I like to tell people this mental part, what goes through our heads when we're fishing. So I'm flipping 1 ounce and 1 1/4 ounce. I'm not sure what Joe's flipping, but he's flipping also. And, I found out later that he was flipping a 1 ounce, creature bait. Okay. So we're flipping 1 ounce and 1 1/4 ounce, and neither one of us are getting bit. Okay. And like I've said before, Joe's a tremendous fisherman, right? So you have 2, great fishermen fishing in a really small area. Neither one of us are getting any bites. Okay. And about, 10:30, cameras in my boat. I flip into a grass mat, bait falls, fish eats it. I set up on it, and, I fight it all the way to the boat. Again, got my hands on it. And it's pushing 5s, and I'm all kinds of stuff is breaking loose. I'm sitting in my driver's seat trying to land it. It comes off.
Holy cow, dude.
Yeah, I'm just
holy cow.
I'm pretty calm, but as tough as the tournament was going, and then I got up, fixed my stuff, and it was real quiet in my boat, and I started talking to myself, and I just like, to win these multi-day events, these big multi-day events, you have to fish clean.
Yes.
To win these events, and I was talking to myself, right? I was like, look, Ken, if you want to win this thing, you better execute, period. Right? You have to execute. And again, I can live with, if I do everything right and the fish still comes off, that's part of fishing.
Yes.
But if you're breaking fish off, or your hooks aren't sharp, or you're asleep at the wheel and some fish is swimming off with your bait and then spits it when you go to set the hook, you can't live with those types of mental errors. I really pride myself on, even if it's 3 hours between bites, when I get that next bite, I'm ready in the right position to execute. So 40 minutes goes by. So I lose that one. I still got 2 fish. I watched Joe catch 2 that were like 3. One was like maybe a 3-pounder or 2-pounder. The point is that for about 1 hour and 20 minutes, 2 really good fishermen fish in this area that we have fished for 2.5 days now. Nobody was getting bites.
Wow.
So I kind of wander across the bay, and Joe is fish. He's starting to fish other stuff now, like a power shot.
Yeah.
He's throwing, I don't know if he's throwing a Cinco or not, but he's doing some other things now. He's not just punching anymore.
So did you guys decide to stay in at one location the whole time?
Well, we never really had.
I mean, you were saying it was a small location.
I mean, it was small.
Go for it.
I would say that the entire area that he and I were sharing, at least where we wanted to be, was probably less than 2 acres.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say it's less than 2 acres.
Wow.
So pretty small, but it was very, there was a lot of stuff going for it there. So anyways, so that happens. Joe doesn't get a bite. He actually leaves. Actually, no, while he's there, I move into this bay across the way that nobody has been in. I haven't been in. Nobody has been there. All the boats that have come in and out, like just nobody has gone over there. I guess it looked ugly or something.
Right.
So I left that primary stuff where Joe and I was sharing, and I went across the bay, and I went into that area where nobody had been. And like my third flip, I catch a 460.
Ooh.
Right. So I got 1.5, I got a 460. And then I got like a 2-pounder. And then 3 flips later, I lose a 4-pounder. Okay. So in my mind, I'm like, I lost a 4 and I lost a 5. I'm like, it wasn't meant to be.
Right.
Right. But I don't get down. That's one thing about, from playing sports, as a young kid in high school and college, you just don't get down because you just don't know. I've won tournaments in the first hour, and I've won tournaments in the last hour.
Right.
So having that experience, that you can go through a little 30 or 40 minute flurry and the tournament is over. So I basically start doing circles. And then what I noticed is, so I went from, like I said, this bait, which is a 1 ounce bait, with the college crawl. And what I did was I upsized my weight. So this is 1.5 ounces. I actually had 1.75 ounces on. And then I went down to a smaller college crawl. This is the 3.5 college crawl in spicy purple. Okay. So I picked this rod up, and that quicker descent with the heavier weight, it triggered those inactive fish to bite. That's what happened.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I made that, after watching Joe flip, and then I was flipping 1 ounce, 1.25 ounces, I had said, man, they're really not biting. So I think 2 things happened. One is I upsized my weight. So I went from 1.25 ounces to 1.5 ounces, 1.3 ounces. And then the other thing that happened was the water warmed to the warmest level it had been in 3 days.
Oh.
It got to about 75. And that was pretty warm because, like I said, they use that lake to warm the water up. So once it gets to a certain temperature, they actually dump it into the Feather River. Okay. It's like flushing the toilet. They dump it. Oh. Right. And then what happens is then they refill it from Oroville at the bottom. And largemouth bass don't like that water temp fluctuation. It goes from 75 to 60 overnight. And those fish are not going to bite. And that's what happened when we got there. They had flushed it and filled it, and they filled it to the brim. And the first day of the drive around, the water temp was like just around 69 degrees. And then the last day, I had 74, almost 75 degrees on the last day. Wow. So there's two things that basically happened for me to catch, 19.5 pounds. And it was moving my weight up to get a faster descent to get those fish to react. And I think the water temperature raised enough to where those fish then elevated in the grass. I think they were in the grass the whole time. Right. But when fish are in the grass and they're eating near the bottom, or you got to convince them to bite, they're not very active. Right. Right. But once those fish, what I say is once those fish elevate in the grass, so the grass that I was fishing most of it was in 7 to 9 feet. Okay. And earlier in the week, the fish were biting in that lower third, in that 6, 7, 8 foot range. And then on the last day, I would flip that big weight in there, and they were moving the mat. right? That's how you want them to eat it. You flip in there and they're that active where they're coming out, they're moving a few feet,
right?
And you can see the map move when the fish come to get your bait. You got the right thing. You're in the right place at the right time.
All right. Once you put that last fish in the live well, man, and you got your 19 plus pounds, do you think it was yours?
I did.
Okay.
I'll tell you, Brian. I've like I said, I've fished a lot of these multi-day events. I've actually won some in years past, and it's a weird thing that us fishermen have when you are fishing. One day tournament, it's hard to tell.
Yeah.
But in a multi-day tournament, when it's a weird feeling that to explain to everybody. But I've had events where I finished second and I knew I didn't have enough. Right.
Yeah.
Because I always say this to my partner. I go, okay, if we catch this weight and you're driving back to weigh in, what are you saying to yourself? Right. And I play that out in my head because that's really helps me get to the weight that I need to get to. Right. It really puts my mind there. And so when I had put that last fish, which was a 4-pounder, I actually culled. I threw out a 2-pounder for a 4-pounder, and it took me from like 17.5 to 19.5, which I needed all of that because Austin Wilson had caught 17.5.
Mm-hmm.
So so he made people catch them, and so when I put that last fish in the boat, Ryan, it was hard to explain. I mean, I was all by myself. Camera boats had left. There were a couple people observing and things like that. And when I put that fish in a boat, I actually yelled out. I said, "That's the effing fish."
Awesome, dude. That is awesome.
No, it was.
Man.
I was pretty fired up, man. I was like, that is the effing fish. So I swung that fish aboard. I culled, input it into Tourney X, and then I scaled it, and it ended up being like a 404, and I threw out like a 202 for it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, and then where it got real, I mean, I said to myself when I was driving back to check in, I go, in my gut and in my heart, I felt like I had the tournament won.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I pulled up, I was the first one to check in, right? Because I didn't want to stop again.
Right.
Fear of, whatever. My engine doesn't start, battery goes dead or whatever, right? Spin a prop, spin a hub, whatever. So I'm the first one to check in. And at the check-in, there's a check-in person there. And the staff are able to monitor. So they turn Tourney X off usually about an hour and a half before the tournament ends. Right? Because they want people to tune into the weigh-in to see who wins.
Yeah.
So it was funny. I didn't register it right away, but when I pulled up, I asked for bags, and Karen, the person checking us in, she says, "Ken, they want you to weigh in last." And I kind of looked at her like, what do you mean? I go, I was third. So if you go reverse order, I should weigh in third to the last. And she just threw her hands up and she says, "I was just told for you to wait." Right. Right. Exactly. And I didn't register it right away. I didn't register.
I think I don't won this, boys and girls.
Right. That kind of gave me my first indication, and then Joe's fiance came on the dock, and she was able, on the spectator side, she was able to keep track of Tourney X, and she's very versed at, what's going on, who needs what. I mean, she's, she's not your typical fan, right? She knows awesome. Exactly what's going on. And she says, she said to me, "Oh, Ken, you got it." Like, just really matter of fact, matter of fact. Right. Yeah. That's what I said. I'm like, "Well, Amy, how do you know?" And she goes, "Well, I was monitoring it all day." And she says, Austin caught 11 fish, 11 scoreable, but on the last day, you only get credit for your 5 biggest.
Mm-hmm.
And she says, "Well, yeah, I mean, I counted, I looked at his fish, and I looked at his 5 biggest. And she says, at the time, it looked like for his 5 biggest, he had around 16 or 17 pounds. Okay. She says, "Well, I know when I looked at yours," she said, "you had more than that for 5.
Right.
Right. So she said, so there's no way, because he caught more. The way Turning X works is they just keep adding your weight, your total weight for every scoreable bass you input into the system. But I had only boated 6 bass that day, and where he had boated like 11 or 12.
Yeah, so he finished with 17 and a half pounds.
Yeah. And which was a fantastic weight.
Yeah.
Because like I said, there were a lot of locals there at the weigh-in, and again, they catch them big there in the spring, but in the summer they don't. And they were very, I guess, impressed with what our field did. What we actually caught there during the summer months.
Brother, man, congratulations on the win.
Thank you very much.
Is this your biggest one ever in your book?
Yeah, I mean, from an event standpoint, and from, like as we talked about earlier, from having to qualify for a circuit and having a division that you actually can't just pay your money.
Yep.
Yeah, it's big. And it's also big personally because, to go to a place you've never been.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing about it right there.
It really is. And I think, yeah, go ahead, Ryan.
And to have that, success.
Yeah, it really is, because it's hard to explain to people what type of confidence that puts in yourself, right? Because I think anything we do, whatever it is we do, whether it's golf or tennis or fishing or whatever, there's always things that you don't think that you can do, or that you doubt that you can get that done, get a certain thing done, whether it's hitting a 300-yard drive, or whether it's going to a strange lake you've never been to, be able to break it down under pressure, and then be able to make the right decisions to actually come out on top.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. It's a tremendous self-gratifying feeling.
All right, I got 2 more questions, and we're gonna wrap this bad boy up here. First question is, what was your biggest takeaway from this event? What did you learn from this event that you can use in Ken's future?
Really what we just talked about, that I can, I had said, like in my career, so I have won events on the Cal Delta, and like big events. I've won, and I don't want to brag, but I won like 2 boats on Clear Lake. I won a 1 Bass Pro-Am on Lake Shasta, and I won a couple boats on Lake Oroville. Right. So to be able to win on that diverse of a waters, because like Shasta and Clear Lake, they're spotted bass fishing and super deep and clear.
Right.
So what I really learned about myself is that if I put the work in and I'm focused and in the present, that I can launch my boat anywhere and be a threat to win.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think that is the biggest thing for me internally, and of course I'm not saying I'm going to win every tournament, but inside, that's how I feel. Really insightful question.
Final question for you, leave, man. Any sponsors out there you'd like to thank?
Man, I hate just running down a list of stuff, but
I mean, they pay the bills.
But for this event, obviously on any unfamiliar body of water, having the right mapping and the right graphs. I've been with Lowrance for like 20 years. And, so having the proper mapping, not just, just to navigate, but also to find the right drops and the flats and things like that. That was such a big deal.
Right.
And then, I caught 80% of my fish on a big bite, college crawl, on this bait right here. It's a bait I have a lot of confidence in, and, obviously, and then the Sunline, having those 2 things that I have repetitively had success on and that I trust. And I think people don't put enough weight on being able to trust your equipment for the situation that you're in. But those 2 things, and then being able to get back to the ramp, in my Mercury, I run a Vexus, and my Mercury, just it's just been tremendous. I mean, the companies know, and I know that at this point they don't need me to list every single one of them, but I appreciate the opportunity, Brian. But I think more than anything is I love the industry that I'm a part of. It's not just about fishing. I enjoy helping people, and just give back and leave the place better than you found it, I guess would be my motto.
That's awesome. Ken, man, we appreciate you coming on and talking with us. Congratulations. Best of luck in the rest of 2021. And, as always, if we can do anything for you, just let us know.
All right, Brian, appreciate it.
All right, guys, man, we really appreciate Ken coming on and talking with us. Ken is one awesome dude, loves to bass fish, as you can tell. A great angler and, all around awesome guy. And, a quick story for me. Like I said, we met each other at ICAST a few years ago now. It's how long you can't think that I've been doing this thing for 11 years now. But we get to meet at ICAST, and like I said, I reach out to them. They are on the West Coast. They're a long freaking ways away, like our boy Mr. Barrio Bass. But they're a great fan of the basscast.com, and they appreciate what we do out here on the East Coast. So congratulations to him. We hope you guys learned something tonight. All right, guys, before we go, don't forget Rumble. If you guys have not checked out Rumble, please make sure you do so today. That is the home of Basscast Radio. And I'll bring it up here real quick for you guys. Hopefully you can see it. There it is, Rumble. There's the app. Here's all the shows for you guys who are watching on video. And you can go download the app right now. Follow Basscast Radio. Backstage Fishing is on there as well. So just hit play. Love to have you. And we got 4 followers so far. Let's get it to 50 to 100. That'd be awesome. And you guys actually might like Rumble as well. It's a little different than YouTube, by the way, but I think you guys will like it. Don't forget tonight, guys, Riverwise Fishing. Hold up some real quick. There you guys go. Riverwise Fishing. Want to thank Riverwise Fishing for sponsoring this episode of Basscast Radio. Riverwise Fishing, your source for quality fishing gear. They offer your favorite baits in your go-to colors, such as sexy shad and green pumpkin, but have added some unique and effective patterns, such as spring fling, pumpkin spice, and bullfrog. Speaking of bullfrog, guys, their signature 3-inch micro frog has been the most productive and versatile bait in their lineup. Definitely a fan favorite. So when it comes to sun protection and being comfortable in the water, check out their full line of apparel as well. For anything from performance shirts to neck gaiters to beat the heat, check them out, riverwisefishing.com. And just to let you guys know, they got a sale getting ready to come up. So head on over, check out Riverwise Fishing, click the link below this podcast, and it'll be all right there for you guys. Head on over, check out all the great products that they have to offer. And again, guys, thank you, everyone. And we hope you enjoyed tonight's show. Always wear your life jacket. Be safe while you're out there on the water. Have a great night, everyone. We'll be talking to you later.